Viggo Mortensen throughout the entire movie is fucking
So always in pain and
clearing his fucking throat. Like, please, Lord,
God,
somebody give this man a lozenge.
I can feel you pulling things around in there.
It's a brand new organ. Never before seen.
So Crimes of the Future, it's basically, this movie takes place sort of in a really unspecified point in the future where humans basically adapt to technology, I guess you could say. And the way they adapt to that is by being able to transform and mutate their bodies in different ways. Saul Tenser here, played by Viggo Mortensen, he has apparently adapted the ability to grow new and never before seen organs in his body, some of which are useful, some of which are not. And he basically is a celebrity performance artist working with a partner of his, and they put on shows doing live surgery where they remove said organs. Now, also in this unspecified future, humans have, I guess, evolved the ability to not feel pain or develop infections. So public surgeries have become very popular and being performed by just everybody.
Yeah. They don't really go into that, the pain things too much. I don't know.
It's
I was a
mentioned
little
very briefly.
confused. Yeah. Because you see people just on the street just like cutting into each other.
Yeah.
A lot of weird shit going on. It felt like just watching a bad dream unfold right in front of you, watching this movie.
We've all felt that the body was empty. Empty of meaning. And we've wanted to confirm that, so that we could fill it with meaning.
Viggo Mortensen, and everything he does only serves his career as a performance artist. So he is not only working as a performance artist, he's working with the Bureau, which is like a government agency that is not a big fan of this new evolutionary path that humans have gone down. So they're trying to sort of stop it. He's also working with this
New Vice.
Yeah,
some of the cops. Yeah.
Yeah. He's also working with a group, an agency that is a new agency that works to document.
Well, they're not yet an agency.
Yes,
it's the organ registry agency that they're trying to establish, but they're not quite yet an agency.
And they work to basically catalog and document new organs. He's also working with the third group, which is like a group of, I don't know what you would even want to call it, like rebels maybe? Or it's,
the plastic eaters.
Yeah.
The next generation of the people that have evolved, embracing what they have become.
They don't like what's happening with the body. In particular, what's happening with my body. Which is why I keep cutting it up.
So, I mean, listen, there's some cool concepts in this movie for sure, but I fucking hated this movie. I had a hard time sitting through it. And I couldn't wait for it to be over. I've never checked the fucking time thing this many times in my life.
Yeah.
And it's because mainly the movie was boring to me.
It was.
Like, you have... sorry to interrupt you, but you have all these like cool concepts that are just presented in such an uninteresting and slow-moving way. And... yeah, that's pretty much it. It was just boring. It never really went anywhere. This movie felt like a David Cronenberg fan was like in film school, and this was like his student film homage to David Cronenberg.
My biggest problem, I just felt like, what is the point? What are the stakes here? Where are we going? Because it did start to make more sense in the second half, and then it just ended.
Yeah.
I was not expecting that to be the last scene at all. We needed a third act or something.
That was the third act.
That was the third act. That felt
Yeah.
like the second act to me. That felt like the second half.
You know, maybe he found purpose and meaning in his humanity,
Possibly.
because he does these shows where it's all this weird art, and all these other shows, you know, where you're mutilating yourself and you're trying to figure out what all these organs are and stuff. And he finally came to the realization is like, we actually are evolving to be able
Right.
to consume this stuff and live on.
Mm.
And this is who we are now. It's an interesting thought concept, you know. It's like an
Yeah.
veiled abstract of what current society is. Even though you said it wrote a long time ago. I mean, people have trouble just living and being happy. We need constant social media interaction, and that finding purpose in other forms of pleasure. It's
That's true.
I mean, I think that the story that he tried to convey was rather genius, but the execution was fucking terrible. But I'm not a fan of the mutilation and the gore and stuff. Like,
Well,
I don't need to see that. So
yeah, I gotta say though, so this movie was marketed sort of oddly. Like there's a lot of hype surrounding this movie. It's not very. It's wildly popular among critics. It's got critical praise. Apparently, it had a standing ovation at the Cannes Film Festival where it premiered. It has a very, very low fan score across all, like, you know, aggregate websites, Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb. So audiences are not a huge fan. But this movie was marketed as like, you'll fucking throw up in your seat. This is the most shocking thing ever. And honestly, I think his movies in the past were more shocking because most of those movies relied on practical effects. And honestly, I don't think the CGI in this movie was very good. Like when they're doing up close, like shots of like incisions and stuff like that, it really didn't look very real.
Yeah,
and there were some moments of practical effects. Like I think the stomach zipper fellatio scene was like
a weird one.
Was a combination of practical effects and CGI, but like I don't know, none of it to me was like, oh my god, this is disgusting and gross. It was the only one that bothered me was when that chick was getting her foot like carved into, and you heard the bone getting rubbed against.
Yeah.
What do you think they'd find inside it?
Outer space.
Whoops. Sorry.
But I don't like. I'm not a fan of these types of things. Like, you know, they say like art imitates life. Like, what the fuck is wrong with David Cronenberg? That like this is his thing. Like, I don't understand. And people who want to watch this type of shit, like stories and movies and art, it's like escapism. You want to escape into a fantasy, and I just don't really see the appeal to this type of stuff personally. But that being said, I don't think anything in this movie was like that fucking shocking. So this movie was marketed as like that, like, oh, this is gonna fucking blow your socks off and all this shit. And people walked out of the theater at the Cannes Film Festival, and I did a little digging and reading, and apparently like not that many people walked out. Like it was like just a couple, and like they kind of that story
they overblew it to hype it.
Yeah, and this being sensationalized.
It definitely was overhyped. Like,
I don't know.
And
I was pretty hyped for this, and
were you?
I don't think it lived up to the hype that was like spread amongst.
Well, even the trailer, like the trailer, we were like, "What the?"
Well, the trailer showed all the like shocking parts of the movie, including the zipper stomach fellatio scene. So yeah, I don't know. I think this was just like one of those movies that was just like overly hyped. It was completely off my radar. I forgot it existed until you guys mentioned it for the purposes of this podcast. But I had heard about it months ago, and I was just kind of like, like whatever. You know, you mentioned, Marvin, that you didn't really know like what this movie was trying to say. But I found a quote from David Cronenberg, and he said Tensor, played by Viggo Mortensen, is really an avatar, a template or model of the artist who is actually giving everything he could, opening himself up and giving what is the deepest, most intimate part of himself hidden inside. He's offering it up to his audience and therefore being incredibly vulnerable to ridicule, to rejection, to misunderstanding, to anger. And to me, that is the model of a true passionate artist. I was actually thinking that through the entire movie. I was like, man, this is really like a metaphor for like being an artist of any form.
Artists, yeah.
And let me tell you something. I fucking hate art. I hate art. I hate artists. I hate people who are into art because it's such a fucking pompous and just cartoonish thing that people do. Like they'll stand in front of like a fucking empty canvas that's just hung in an art museum and be like, They'll just ponder it deeply.
There's a funny meme about that going around right now. It's like the people who buy art versus the people who make the art. Like you have these like uppity rich people. Oh, that's beautiful art.
Yeah.
And then the people that make the art, like like Van Gogh cutting his ear off and just like cracked down and shit. It's two totally different people.
I just find it like
the pretentious art buyers and the crazy fucking artists.
And they'll say shit like, with regard to the issue of content, the sublime beauty of the spatial relationships makes resonant the eloquence of these pieces. And it's like, bro, what? No human being actually thinks and talks like that. Shut the fuck up. Go back to your car and go home. Like, I can't stay. And I know people who are like that, that like are into things purely for the contrarian nature of it. Like everybody fucking hates a thing because it's like objectively bad, but they'll be like, oh, I don't know. I think that was really brilliantly done. And it was a genius portrayal of, so it's like, just stop.
Yeah.
And I think this is that type of movie. This movie was like made for those people. And you could tell because again, it has critical appraise, critical applause.
But normal people are like, what the fuck is this?
And audiences, audiences don't like it. This movie was made for the people that agreed with fucking what's his name's take on the Marvel films. Oh, they're not real cinema. They're just popcorn films.
Scorsese.
Scorsese. They're cotton candy or like going on a roller coaster. It's like, if you think this is cinema, this art house bullshit, like, fuck off. That really irritates the shit out of me.
Art is subjective, and objectively
true.
There's art for the pretentious, and they're gonna like what they like, and we're gonna like what we like.
100% art is subjective.
Yeah.
But then there are things like this movie. Like there are things in this movie that I could objectively claim. Like the movie is very slow paced. It's confusing at times.
It is.
It doesn't explain its plot points very well.
True.
The dialogue is mostly like childish and bad and like just simplistic to a point of like I said, it's like a bad video game dialogue. There was that moment when Vigo goes to the fucking registrar and he walks into the office and the guy is kind of like hiding behind that shelf. I don't know if you guys remember this scene. And Vigo literally, like, the camera like cuts from one character to Vigo and it's like, what's up? And then the other guy's like, I just wanted to ask you a question. And it's like, who fucking wrote this shit? David Cronenberg did. Poor guy.
Let us not be afraid to map the chaos inside.
So yeah, I did not like this movie, in case you hadn't noticed. Dusty, you've actually taken away some shockingly good things. And I think I just was completely I think I was just completely disinterested the entire time. So I didn't even.
Well, I mean, I tried to give it a watch. I found myself getting a little bored towards the end, but I stuck with it. And I think I already said it. Well, I didn't say this. I don't mind a little gore and grotesque violence if it's done right. I think sometimes in this movie they did it just for the sake of doing it, and it was overdone. It was unnecessary. And I found the film slow at times, a little boring at times, but like I said, like the overall story, the message, I thought it was clever. The message you try to convey, but it was just terribly executed, and I wasn't a big fan either. Like this could have been a great movie, but overall, didn't like it really.
Yeah, you guys basically summed it up. When I first watched the trailer, it felt like the trailer was a lot more fast paced than what the movie actually was. Like I thought it was gonna kind of be more exciting based on the trailer.
Right.
And then, like you guys said, it basically showed all the good parts in the trailer. So when you get to the movie and it's all this dead space in between, and they're not really connecting like the plot or the story together that well, and like
Yeah.
actually explaining things. You're just kind of waiting for the next random line to hopefully point you in the right direction to piece it together.
Yeah.
It was okay. I think it was a good concept, but just executed poorly, like you said.
Let us create a map that will guide us into the heart of darkness.
Right now, this is on IMDb, sitting at a 6.0. It's got very high praise from critics on Rotten Tomatoes, but fuck critics.
Fuck
6.0, honestly, I think is generous for this movie. I would have to, my personal rating, I would give this like a 5.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. This is getting a
Yep.
5.
That's yeah. I was
'Cause it
gonna give it
wasn't
less,
terrible,
but
but it wasn't good.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think
5s across
right in
the
the middle.
board.
Right in the middle.
I guess we just didn't understand it. I can't wait to see
You're
the
not an
comments.
artist. I don't know.
I can't wait to see the comments and
You
like
just wouldn't get
YouTube
it.
of like, oh, you just didn't understand it. It went over your
Wouldn't get
head.
it.
The premise was just so deep. It was too deep for my feeble brain.
Yeah.